My name is David Madison, the 22nd of August, 2019. I was in the Methodist ministry for 9 years, but by the time I had finished my PhD in biblical studies, my belief in God had evaporated. I'm an ex-clergy atheist. That wasn't supposed to happen. Seminaries exist to manufacture clergy, but if you look at the Bible too closely, the errors, the contradictions, the flaws become all too obvious. Hence this series of flash podcasts titled Bible Blunders and Bad Theology, and I'll cover a lot of them. This is episode 4. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, 4 guys entered the Get Your Book in the Bible contest. Their names were Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and they were convinced that their own versions of the Jesus story was the best one. But they decided to get together for drinks to wait for the results to see who had won. And sure enough, at the appointed hour, each of them got texts, and boy were they shocked. They each received the same message. Gentlemen, the panel of judges has decided to accept all 4 of your stories and to bind them together for publication. This was actually bad news. They didn't want to share the spotlight. But it's good news for us. It's much easier to spot the flaws and the contradictions and the errors when the Gospels are read side by side and can be compared. Yes, this is a major Bible blunder, which has gone largely unnoticed by the folks in the pews who hear the Gospels read in snippets on Sunday morning. But here's a challenge for your Christian friends to do more. Here's the challenge. Anyone can do it. Read the Gospel of Mark straight through, start to finish, without stopping, in one sitting. It'll take about as much time as watching a movie. Well, it might take a little longer if you stop to make notes on things that don't make sense. When you're done, have a big glass of wine. Then do the same thing with the Gospel of John. This will take a little longer, and trust me, you'll need the wine. The Jesus in the Gospel of John is very different. Can it be the same guy? How did Mark and John come up with such different accounts, with such different Jesuses? John's Gospel contains long Jesus monologues, tedious Jesus monologues, that are entirely missing from Mark. How did Mark miss all of these words of Jesus? He missed them because John invented them 2 or 3 decades later, and they present an egregiously egotistical Jesus. We can only hope that Jesus didn't have such a swollen head. In Mark 4:33, we read that Jesus preached only in parables, and Matthew and Luke included many more parables than Mark did. But in John's Gospel, there aren't any parables at all. Go figure. Mark didn't know the stories about changing water into wine or the raising of Lazarus. These are biggies. How did he miss them? Mark and John didn't know anything about the virgin birth of Jesus. Matthew and Luke borrowed virgin birth from pagan religions and tacked it on to their stories of Jesus. No other authors in the New Testament had heard of the virgin birth. It's a minority opinion, and it's bad theology. How embarrassing, by the way, that the Matthew and Luke birth stories are different and cannot be reconciled. These are just a fraction of the glaring contradictions and errors that pop into view when the Gospels are read side by side, carefully compared. How do the folks in the pews seem not to notice or care? The church got away with a lot when it dubbed these 4 authors saints. That was a blunder too, because we know nothing whatever about these authors. But we do know that they made a lot of mistakes thanks to this major Bible blunder of publishing these 4 Gospels together.